Here we go. Focus. Speed. I am speed.
We will never sleep, cause sleep is for the weak. That we will never rest, so we're all fucking dead.
No sir, man. I don't like that crap. I'm a rocker, dude, through and through. Here's my favorite bands. AC/DC, Van Halen, not Van Hagar, Skinner, Def Leppard.
All right.
We're on in 5 minutes.
We're headlining. We shouldn't be going on until at least 11.
It's the prom. It's over at 11.
Hey guys, what the heck is going on? Sam Cox here, and this is the IMG podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today, and this is episode number 13, and I finally get to sit down with Craig Vaughn on this podcast. Well, I didn't really get to sit down with him. I had to call in to his radio station. We've been trying to do this podcast for a while now, and we haven't really been in the same place at the same time for very long, and finally I just said, you know what, screw it, dude, and I called into his radio station, and he pressed record. And we were able to pretty much just get the whole entire audio file on this podcast. So if it sounds like I'm on the phone, it's because I called into his radio station. It's not going to be like the other podcasts where we're sitting right next to the guests here in the studio. I'm definitely like 300 miles away from him. So yeah, Craig is one of my favorite people in the music industry. He is one of the people that I go to whenever I need advice or kind of direction in something. Almost on a weekly basis, we are talking about, touring, marketing, and everything pretty much under the sun in regards to the music business. And he's got a lot of really, really solid knowledge, so you guys make sure that you're paying attention on this one. Craig has been in radio for over 2 decades, and we talk about a lot of different things on this podcast. We talk about his market, which is Amarillo, the cool different venues, the places to play, places to eat, and kind of, some other local bands and stuff. Then we really dive deep into a lot of music business stuff in regards to, again, touring, marketing, radio, and some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that's kind of weird that you may have not been aware of. And then we also talk about the evolution of music in the Texas Red Dirt and Americana scene, where it has been and where it's going. And then we talk about benefits of, advertisement and how to get the attention of your local radio station and other radio stations in your region. Before we get into this, though, I want to give a shout out. If you guys have not listened to the new Tyler Bird single, make sure you guys check it out. It's called I Saw the Devil. It is the second release from Highway 82 Records, and we're pretty proud of it. So Tyler Bird, B-Y-R-D. Go check it out. Go add it to your playlist. That'd be awesome. And thank you guys for listening.
I'm a little scorched, not burned. These are the lessons I learned.
Hey guys, what is going on? My name is Sam Cox, and this is the Independent Musicians Guide podcast, and this is episode number 13. And we're switching roles today. He's usually the one that's doing the interviewing, so we're kind of swapping. Today I'm sitting here with Craig Vaughn.
Yeah, man, I don't know if I've ever been. Well, newspaper once in a while or something like that, but nothing like this, that's for sure.
Yeah, we've been trying to get this going for a while too. Every time that I'm always in the studio, I'm always like, man, we need to get something going, and then started this podcast.
Yeah, as Autumn's like, why don't you guys take it off? Like, can we talk about it later? I want to go get something to eat.
Go out to dinner or something. Just talk your asses off. Yeah. We every time we always come to the studio, we'll just sit there and bullshit for another hour or two afterwards about music, business, everything under the sun. And Autumn's just sitting there, just scrolling on her phone with her cheek and her hand on the table, just like, come on,
that's right,
let's go. So, but anyway, so I wanted to have Craig on here because we're always talking about everything as far as music goes, whether it's anything that has to do with touring, marketing, ins and outs of radio stuff, or how to do this or how not to do this. And Craig's one of the guys that I hit up probably on a monthly, if not weekly basis on things that I need advice on, because he's not afraid to kind of tell it how it is sometimes. So, but we're going to get a little bit of background on Craig. So, Craig, how long have you been in radio?
Oh, man, I guess like 26 years now, I think.
Wow.
I think that's
where's
right.
Where's your first job at?
St. Louis.
Oh, nice.
KTRS. I was doing producing an AM show, Mr. Trivia.
Yeah. Did they put you in as producer right there at the beginning?
No, because I was
doing like come together stuff.
Nope. I did. I was an intern for a guy, and then his producer quit, and so I kind of moved into doing some of that. And so when they found an actual producer that knew what he was doing, they let me do the weekend shift with a guy. And so, but it was still just part time, so I had to move. You need benefits and money.
Yeah, and that's the good thing with radio is you can I know a lot of radio folks that have just moved.
Yeah.
So many different places and taken so many jobs and stuff. But you've been in Amarillo for like
24 years, I think. So most of my
my goodness.
pretty much all of my radio career has been here, just because Amarillo is just a good sized city. It's not too big, not too small, enough to do.
Yeah.
Cost of living isn't very high.
And for some reason I thought you were doing rock radio.
I did
elsewhere, and then you moved.
No.
Amarillo to do country.
Nope,
okay, so what were you doing in Amarillo before you started doing this?
About 2 doors down, I was on a classic rock station, 95.7.
Nice.
Same call sign and everything. We switched this one over to. We took over the 95.7 frequency because it was 100,000 watts, and the music was just growing so big that we just needed more power, and so
nice.
And the classic rock stuff's going away.
And so out there in Amarillo, I know we talk about it all the time, but you're kind of in your own little bubble.
Little bubble.
As far as like the music and scenes and everything goes.
I don't worry too much about what everybody else is doing.
Yeah. And what you guys have changed the format of your station, because you guys were, for the longest time, just not to say like another one of the Texas Red Dirt stations, but you guys had kind of changed it into more of a, I guess I'll let you explain.
We were 100% just Texas Red Dirt. If it wasn't from Texas or Oklahoma or New Mexico or whatever, and you weren't touring here, whatever 70% of the time, then we just would pass on it. We didn't care. You had to be Texas Red Dirt, all Texas all the time. And then we started to get music from other places, and really the Texas Red Dirt stuff started to sound more and more like Nashville. And there's 3 Nashville stations in this market already, so we'd start to get stuff from. Got Zephaniah O'Hara from New York, and you got Charlie Marie from Providence, Rhode Island. You got Pony Bradshaw from Georgia. There's obviously Tyler Childers in Kentucky and Sturgill and all those guys. And it was like, man, this is just silly not to play this music because it's not from Texas.
Right.
And so we switched it up. Now we call it independent country. So we keep that. We still want you to be independent. We don't want any big label stuff. But it opened up the doors to a lot of great music that we weren't playing. Charles Wesley Godwin.
You went from dropping, I'm not going to name any artists, but some of the quote unquote.
If it sounds like you could play it in between Kenny Chesney and Carrie Underwood, if it would just move right through that without skipping a beat between those two songs, between those two artists, then we didn't want it anymore. We're just, and it's got nothing. I still am a fan of a lot of those artists, and it's kind of easy to tell which ones those are if you listen to any kind of Texas Red Dirt music.
Right.
It's just, there's 3 Nashville stations in this market, and you can't compete with those. Those Nashville stations are on the radar. Their artists are, even when Kenny Chesney's not putting out an album, they're writing articles about him not putting out an album. Those guys cancel a tour, and it's like big news, so they're always in front of you and award shows and stuff like that. And so when you're playing artists who don't have that kind of, international recognition, but they sound a lot like them, then you just kind of get buried. Like, who is this? This guy's all right, but I don't know who it is, where it's like, oh, that's Kenny Chesney. I love Kenny Chesney. You know what I mean? Or George Strait even, it's just, you're just fans of that brand, and that familiarity is a big thing in radio. If you're playing a new artist every time and a new song, then, part of the radio is you want to be able to sing along. You want to be able to just, hear a song that and sing along to it. And, it really helped in the Texas Red Dirt world because those guys are coming through Amarillo all the time. So you could hear them on the radio and go see them, compared to like a Kenny Chesney who's going to Dallas. And if you don't know, we're 5.5 hours from Dallas.
You guys are kind of like out in your own. And, and we were talking about the other day, Amarillo is not out of Texas. I mean, it's 100% Texas, but you guys really are kind of like in your own.
Yeah, the Panhandle's different.
place out there. Yeah. And everybody talks about how far Lubbock is. I mean, you go all the way to Lubbock from wherever you're at in Texas, you're probably going to be driving a little ways. And then you go another 2 hours north.
Yeah.
And there's Amarillo. It's like way up there. And it's kind of, I mean, you're in your own little corner of the country. Cause I mean, you're, what are you, like 3 or 4 hours from Albuquerque, OKC, Lubbock? I mean,
4
you're
hours
out there, dude. It's like,
4 hours to Albuquerque, 3.5 to Oklahoma City, 5 to Dallas, Fort Worth. I-40 runs right through us though. So you come through town. If you've ever come through town, you've probably stopped and got gas or stayed at a hotel or got some food here just because it's the only big city between Oklahoma City and Albuquerque there where you could just stop and get all that stuff.
We were at the Big Texan. What do you think about? What do we think about that place? Is it overrated? I know you live there, so you probably eat there a ton.
Only when I have to.
Only when you have to. Is it kind of like
it's a touristy place? I mean, and don't get me wrong. I mean, if you're not from here and you see all those billboards coming in, I mean, that guy's father or grandfather, the one that really started that, came through Amarillo and he was like, "Where's all the cowboys?" He was like, because you don't see people on horseback riding up and down the street here, but so he was disappointed. So he opened a restaurant and put a guy out there on horseback all day long and put some people out there playing banjo and gave the tourists what they were looking for. He was smart.
We were in there and, there was a bunch of people that did not look like they were anywhere from around in Texas that whole period. They were probably just coming from East Coast to West Coast or, you know what I mean? Because it's I-40.
I-40 and Route 66. So, I mean, you get the people that go from Chicago all the way out to California or vice versa, and we're right along that route. So we're a tourist attraction when it comes to the Big Texan. So,
Yeah, and I would say if you haven't gone to the Big Texan, go once. Just to, and if you're lucky, you'll catch somebody trying to do the 72-ounce challenge or whatever. Somebody's doing it while we were in there, but
they put it on the website now. I think too. I think you can actually watch. Like they stream those live now.
Yeah, they stream them live. But this guy had cameras on him and stuff. He was trying to do it, and they were like, stream us on YouTube or whatever. And I was like, holy crap, dude!
Every city's got that place where every people come through the town. They want to stop and eat at that place. And everybody in that city goes, yeah, but I know this other little spot. You know what I mean? But it's, you can't not take your family to the touristy place. You know what I mean? It's right. You gotta take them to the touristy place.
yeah, totally. Yeah, because if somebody asks me where to go eat in Amarillo, I'm like, go get a green chili burger from the Golden Mine.
Yep.
Downtown, and that would be better than anything you could ever get. But cool, man. So we're gonna get into. Kind of really what this whole podcast is about is just trying to give advice to people that are kind of up and coming.
We're going
to kind of try not to stray too far off, but I know we will. Yeah. But we're also kind of going to talk towards, a lot of other people, whether it be management, maybe some radio people, other musicians, and all that kind of stuff. And I know this is kind of a loaded question right off the bat, but if you have an artist that is starting maybe not ground zero, but somebody that plays. And what is some advice that you have for an artist that is trying to get on the radio?
I'll tell you, you and I talk about promoters quite a bit. It is worth it to get a promoter at least for your very first single. You will gain so much knowledge from the promoters. The promoters have been promoting music to radio forever.
Right.
And I'm also going to preach to you that you need radio, especially in this genre of music. And I'm not saying don't do Spotify and don't do this and don't do that. I'm telling you, it's a shotgun. You're going to use that shotgun theory. You should try to put a BB in every single your social media. And I rag on you for you've heard me do it. I'm like, if you don't have a Twitter, why not? It's free. Right. It's free advertising, isn't it? But I like Facebook. Yeah, well, it's free, right? I mean, it's not costing you anything to open a Twitter account and check it once a day and share something, right? And you should be putting your stuff on Spotify, and you should be trying to get in Pandora, and you should make a lyric video for YouTube, and you should be doing all that, But if you're wanting touring and stuff, like there's a lot of people who have high streaming numbers that can't book gigs in Amarillo because the radio's not playing them because people still depend on radio in these type of markets. So, and that's where I would hire a promoter, and there's a bunch of them out there, and there's a bunch of good ones, and there's a bunch of bad ones. Man, there is no shortcut to the business, though. So even if you hire a bad one, you're still going to learn. from the bad one, and they've all been doing it long enough that even if they don't do you a good service, you're still going to learn a lot from that.
Right.
But you kind of need it, just because you and I talked about this. They will send you out on radio tour. First of all, they'll send your song out to 100 and some stations, and then you can. And it's up to you. It's up to the artist. You can't just sit back. I've seen a lot of artists do this too. Like, I hired a promoter. That's what they're supposed to do. No, the promoter's job is to help you, and that's what you're hiring them for. The rest is up. You got to push. If you want to go meet those radio stations, and you need to tell your radio promoter, I want to go meet those guys, and get that started, set up on a radio tour, and then I'll tell you what, and then it's up to you. After that first single, if you want to try to do it on your own, then it is not impossible to. Now, you're probably not going to have as good of results, but you're going to have decent results. If you're doing it like Sam does, you do a fantastic job of sending out an email every week going, hey, here's our latest single. If you haven't added it, here's how it's doing on the charts. Please give it a listen. We're going to be out on tour over the summer. Just what's going on and stuff. And so you can do it on your own. It's not impossible. But even you've had promoters in the past.
Yeah, we had for the first 3 singles for Love Liquor, Footsteps, and for Trailer Like You, we had a promoter, and I will say that it did open a ton of doors, because there are a lot of DJs that will probably take you more serious if you have a promoter. Like, if I was a DJ or PD or program director and I was looking at an artist that hired a record promoter, I'm saying, okay, this person actually took the step to get a record promoter, instead of just Bo with his guitar calling up the radio station asking if he can, you know what I'm saying? Asking if he can come in for an interview or get a song played or whatever. But we did that for the first 3 ones, and it's very costly, I will say that, but I feel like there's a lot of people that we may not have been able to shake hands with and get in the door and that kind of stuff if we didn't have them.
Right after that, it's up to you. If you're going to go visit a radio station and you're going to leave without getting that guy's email address or his phone number or something like that, then that's on you. You did that,
right.
Because you had your shot to go, hey man, let's get a picture. What's your phone number? I'll send it to you. And now you got his phone number. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you can text him when you got a new single coming out, and you could text him, hey man, I've got a new single out. I'd love to send it to you. What's your email address?
Right.
That's all.
I feel like a lot of PDs will at least listen to it.
Yeah.
Maybe not even the whole song, but they'll listen to see the quality, or maybe the first 30 to 60 seconds.
I'll tell you what, dude.
I don't really know how you go.
Every radio station in the entire world has when the DJs and if they'll tell you different, they're lying. We listen to the first few. A lot of times, if you're 10 seconds in and it doesn't sound right, you don't listen to anything more. You're done. 10 seconds was all you got. That's why it's important to, they always say, don't make those long intros. Those 30-second intros are like, man, when you get 10 songs in a day, a 30-second intro is like a kiss of death. Goodbye. I ain't got time.
Yeah, that's your whole morning, just trying to listen to songs.
Yeah,
you're just waiting for the lyrics to come in. Yeah, I mean, once you're 3, 4, 5 singles into, being relevant on radio, then I feel like you have a little more freedom to, do that kind of stuff. But your first single to radio, correct me if I'm wrong, try to be singing within the first 15 to 25 seconds. Try to get to the chorus and the hook, if you have one, within the first minute, 75 seconds or so. What do you recommend as far as all that?
I just really, just get to it. Yeah, get to your hook. It's got to grab just like you as a musician, and every musician out there can tell you the same thing, or your mom or your sister or your brother can tell you the same thing. Ride around with them in the car sometime and just, watch them switch the station as soon as they hear a song they don't like. Like, this ain't, you look at them and go, you didn't even give that a chance. It didn't sound good. I didn't like it. But you didn't even listen to it, It's the same thing, man. We're just human, just like everybody else.
You play more of the quote unquote independent and or Americana or up and coming Red Dirt and that kind of stuff. So quality may or may not be as important to you. Not that it's not, but as important to you as it is for.
It's still
other big stations in Texas. But
no, it's still got to be produced good. I mean, nobody wants to listen to a song that's just produced awfully. You know what I mean? It sounds like the drummer's in front of a microphone and the singers in a separate room, or that's a big thing is the mixing of it all. We get those all the time. Everybody does, and it's like you want to give a little forgiveness if it's a brand new artist, or like I don't know, but dude, you got to remember there's. Like in Amarillo, there's like 16 other radio stations, 3 country stations in town. There's a classic country station just out of town that comes in just fine. If people don't like the song, I mean, it just takes a touch of the button. Not to mention everybody's cell phones now attached straight to their car radio, and all of a sudden they don't even hear the radio. They get in and it's on Spotify right away. So it's
right.
It's got to be good, and it's always been that way. But it's even more important, I think, now to make sure it's just got to be good. You just can't.
Well, you have so many desktop producers nowadays.
Yeah.
As far as people that can, I mean, with the way technology's come, with even, Logic and things that just are decently cheap, for a MacBook. I mean, you can record your own drums and you can do, oh my goodness, you can do so much.
Oh, yeah.
You make a whole record.
Yep.
You know what I mean? A shout out to, somebody that kind of comes to mind with this conversation is, Gunner 4, which is a mutual friend of ours.
Yeah.
And, I feel like one of the coolest guys I know, one of the nicest musicians ever, one of the most humble people I think I've ever met in this business. And I feel like the only thing that was holding them back was the fact that their first record or two was just not up to par quality for, radio.
Right.
Maybe for every radio station.
Right.
And I feel like, he just put out that new song recently called Hope.
Yep.
And every major radio station that spins Texas Red Dirt out in West Texas, where you guys are at, and a little farther south, has picked up the single because it's great. It's phenomenal. Yep. And that's kind of where I feel like production meets the personality of the musician. Like,
Yeah, and it's never.
I feel like you got to have both.
On that same note, man, it's funny because you'll know guys for years, and it's really happened to us a bunch here because we switched the way the station sounds. So I did, I've known some guys for years, and I've had to tell them, I'm sorry, man, we've really just kind of changed the sound, and your music just doesn't fit anymore, and they get all butthurt. Man, it's just, if we flip format to an all rock station, you wouldn't be mad at me. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's basically what we did. We kind of flipped the format, And we're only playing like, I think, 6 or 7 of the top 50 on the Texas charts anymore. So it's,
right.
And it's just so if you get turned down, man, just keep going. It's just one person in one market, and, they're not the be all end all. I am not the be all end all. And I've had to tell people, man, just because I'm not playing it doesn't mean you should give up. I mean, it's a great song. It just doesn't fit what we're doing. Don't give up. Just keep plugging away, and keep plugging away. And if you bring up Gunner was coming to town, and he just hit me up on social media. He took the chance. What's the worst I could do is say no? Hey, man, we're playing at the Golden Light this weekend. Can I come in the studio? Yeah, come on in. Let's talk. You know what I mean? And that's it. And then we became friends. So now he's got my number. Now he's got my email address. So then he comes out with a song that's good, and he sends it. And I'm like, yeah, we'd love to play this.
Dude, that was a banger. I heard that, and I was like, oh, man.
That's all it is. There's some of them. I was listening to a girl earlier, and I was thinking, gosh, man, I can't believe I got to ask somebody for their music. Why aren't you sending this out? This is a good song.
Right.
You should. No DJ should have to ask somebody for. You should be ahead of that game.
And let's talk about that for a second. So, are you? And which I know the answer to the question, but are you for or against an artist? I don't want to say stepping on the toes, but maybe assisting or helping out their manager or the radio promoter, or are you for or against people saying like, oh no, that's their job. I just need to worry about writing songs and touring and that kind of stuff, and they'll set up my stuff. What do you think about all that, Greg?
That's tough, because if I'm not playing you, you should ask your promoter why I'm not playing you. You say, hey, I noticed we're not getting any spins in Amarillo. You know what I mean? Because your promoter could probably say, yeah, I'm sure either that's Craig or that guy's an a-hole, which one. You better have thick skin, by the way, to get into any kind of business where you're in the public eye. You better have thick skin, because you ain't gonna make all the people happy all the time. It is not gonna happen. But they could probably tell you. Well, he's not playing you because they don't play, music that sounds like your music. You know, now if I am playing you, feel free. You know what I mean? Hey, man, I appreciate the spins, you know. Dude, I've been called on a Sunday afternoon before. Hey, man, I noticed you're not playing my new single. And I'm like, you calling me on a Sunday to ask me about work? I'm off, man. If you want to call me and say, did you see that Cowboy football game? That was a joke. You know, that's cool. But if you're going to call me and remind me that I have to get up in 12 hours and go to work, we are not going to be friends very long.
Right.
You know?
I feel like the most professional thing that you could do as an artist that has never shook hands, metaphorically or in person, with a radio station or a venue, or, you know, we'll just go with radio station for now. One of the most professional things that you can do is to call the station and ask when the call times are for the PD.
Yeah.
True or false?
Yeah. Yeah, you can, dude, and I'll tell you what, I probably don't, I don't hardly ever talk to any of the promoters because it's just easier for me to do email. Because what happens is the same thing that happens with you and I on the phone. We all of a sudden, like a 5-minute question turns into a 90-minute conversation, you know?
Right.
And so, you know, you're still at work, you know what I mean? You still got stuff to do. So emails and texts, that's what I try to tell. You and I had this conversation before, you know, when you're asking
we've had all the conversations.
Yeah.
every conversation.
Well, when you're calling to ask about spins and stuff, man, a lot of times, a lot of DJs would rather hear from the artist if we're already playing you. If you're a new artist and I've never even met you, you're probably taking a huge risk, you know, to try to get me to play your songs, tag me on your social. I had one last week. Thanks to Craig Vaughn at KPUR for the support. And I'm like, I've never heard of this dude in my life. I'm not playing his music. Matter of fact, I wouldn't play his music. It's not very good, you know. And so all I did was make it, you know, I remember the guy's name. So when they send me music now, part of me doesn't even want to listen to it. I'm like, okay, you told everybody I was playing your song. It's not a good song. That makes me look bad. I don't appreciate it, you know.
Yeah, because people are going to be like, why is Craig playing this?
Yep. You want to
whenever, yeah.
Reach out to me, DM, you know what I mean? Just on, you know, like a private message or that kind of thing. I get those all the time on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I get DMs galore of, hey, here's my new song. Could you listen to it? You know, I get those all the time. And I don't really mind those so much, you know.
So speaking of just like somebody reaching out to you, just cold call, cold message.
Yeah.
From what you know, and I know you're a little bit different, so try to speak of the masses of PDs if you can. What is the best way to get in touch with PDs other than maybe, you know, like I said, calling the office
I really do
10
think
and 4 and asking when the call times are?
I really think if you can call and get their email, you know, everybody does so much through email now, but that also gives you a chance to craft here's who I am. I'm not using a promoter because of this, you know, whether it's money or it's my first single and I'm just trying to, you know, figure things out. Any advice you have would be wonderful. Play to the DJ's ego. Every DJ's got a huge old ego. And if a DJ's listening right now, he's either shaking his head or smiling.
They're turning off the podcast.
Yeah, they're turning it off. Yeah, every DJ's got an ego.
If you're offended, you're guilty. Exactly. If you're offended, you're guilty.
You know, we all got egos. So if you're going to ask like, hey man, I could really use your advice. I heard you were a good guy to talk to. Well, come on over there, man. We'll talk. We'll chat. You know what I mean? Give me a call. Here's my cell phone number. You know what I mean? So you can craft a really nice email. And here's something else. Here's my major tip to every artist out there. You should have a Dropbox folder set up with your single, labeled with your name and then the title of the song in WAV form and an MP3 form, and you can put in your bio, just turn it into an electronic press kit in EPK. I like to have the whole album in there because if I'm only going to play one song from you forever, then I'm probably not going to want to play you at all. You know, but if I'm listening to your album going, dang, that's a good single right there too, then I really am going to be interested, you know, in playing more from you. But that way you can put it in here's a link to my Dropbox. It's got all my information. It's got all my songs in there. I'd love for you to give it a listen and think about, you know, adding this to your rotation. That way, every time you know, and then if they reply, you know what I mean? That's great. Maybe you can start a conversation with them. If they don't, you can send it out again next week. You know what I mean? You know, and it's just being just like you would want, man, the golden rule, just like you would want to be treated if somebody was trying to get, if you were working at a restaurant and somebody came in and they were, you know, hey man, you should try the meatloaf. It's delicious. And then you go to order, steak. Oh man, you should really try the meatloaf. Like, dude, you're never gonna try the meatloaf because that guy just was too pushy. It's the same. Everybody, just the same. Just remember that every DJ is human too. They just have big egos.
Right. What are some? Well, I wasn't agreeing with you. I was just saying, like,
You
yeah,
can.
okay, if you
It doesn't
so.
hurt my feeling. I've told lots of people, dude, you got to, and we're children. We're 12. We're 12, by the way. You have to keep reminding us. That's why I say label the song with your name first, because we'll download it and it's called, John Boy, and you go back to listen to it and you go, man, it's a good song. I'd like to play this song. Who sings this song? Shoot, I don't know. I just downloaded
you go to
it.
like download something,
Yep.
and it says final mix.
Yes.
And you're just like, who is Final Mix? I have no idea who this artist is.
Yep, exactly. We're unorganized and we're lazy and we have big egos.
Your words, man.
Hey, you've been in my studio. You've seen the back counter.
Oh yeah, dude.
Everything from coffee cups.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of that, let's talk about something that maybe turns off 99% of people in the music biz. Name dropping, because I feel like, we were talking the other day when we were in there about like musicians that, okay, if you've ever been to Craig's studio or any radio station studio, period, you'll probably see a whole bunch of signed posters from Randy Rogers. Thanks for playing my shit.
Yep.
With 18 million picks and CDs and stickers. And so Craig has that, but without any room on his walls at all, because he's
using it as wallpaper. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, like I feel like Craig has probably more Texas artist memorabilia than any. But anyway, so
it gives the band something to look at while I'm interviewing the singer.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's what I was saying is, like, I feel like people all the time, and I've heard it before whenever we were like on radio tour, and the artists before us, because sometimes radio tour is like consecutive artists. Sometimes, like, you're waiting on somebody to get done in the room so you can go in. And then, and you were talking about, what I've seen people do before, which is pointing up at the wall and be like, oh yeah. Oh yeah, Curtis Grimes, man, I tell you what, me and him go way back. And start name dropping everybody on the wall. Yeah. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, it's annoying. it's annoying when I do it. Once in a while I catch myself doing it. I'm like, oh, stop, dude, stop. It's okay if it's in conversation. You know what I mean? If you're,
What's the rule?
If
you
it's
can name drop if
it's just in conversation, you know what I mean? If you're talking to somebody and you're not in here going, well, I know them and they're my good friends and those guys are, you know what I mean? If it's just in conversation, I don't think anybody minds. You know what I mean? It's just, it's just annoying when anybody does that, isn't it? Like, even
I think so.
Even with like
out of nowhere,
yeah,
it's just annoying.
It's just like I've had guys come in here and point out, hey, there's my good friend up there on the wall, and I'm looking at him going, oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I feel like, to a point, if you're saying if included in the name drop, you're saying my friend,
yeah,
then I feel like you should be able to call them.
Yep.
Or at least Facebook message them or something. You know what I'm saying? Have some sort of like. Yep. Other than like we opened up for them back in 2013 or something what I mean? Like that.
Yeah, like or you see that Randy Rogers thing on the wall, and you go, man, he gave me some of the best advice ever. Or you just not like, oh, we hang out all the time. Da, 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 da. Like okay, cool guy. Because I've never seen you on any of the social media pages.
A fair warning to any musicians ever trying to get in with a venue or radio or anybody. Other musicians are opening up for whatever. They're not impressed.
No,
most of them aren't. Some of them might be.
No,
depending on
if you stay humble.
What's more,
you're ahead of the game.
Exactly.
Just stay humble.
What's more impressive, I feel like, when artists talk to me is when I didn't know that they were so big or such a big deal, and then I find that out later, not from them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like an artist that I meet in person. Like I met somebody the other day in Fort Worth, and I was like, cool, man, and shook his hand and sat there and, we went to the bar, got a shiner, and then Autumn was playing an acoustic show and we were just bullshitting. And then I got him on Facebook. And then anyway, I go and a couple of days later, I'm scrolling on Facebook and I'm like, oh, there's that guy. And then his he posts pictures of upcoming dates on his calendar. I was like, man, this guy is like playing all the cool places with all the cool people. And I go look him up on Spotify, and he's got like a
you didn't even know it,
or
huh?
5-digit number.
Yep.
Exactly. Like that is the most attractive thing to me, and probably to 99% of people in music businesses.
Yeah.
Whenever you didn't know that somebody was actually such a big deal, or at least kind of a big deal, but they didn't portray it that way at all.
Yeah, and they're still a nice person. Just know that I'll tell you what, if you're the biggest Texas Red Dirt star, there's probably 90% of the world still doesn't know who you are. Let me see, how do I without dropping names?
That most of the people, and this will probably get us in trouble because we talked about trying to not get too canceled from this podcast, but there's there's a lot of people, I feel like, even on the charts right now, on the TRRR or the Texas Country Music Chart and whatever, a lot of people that have number ones, and I'm like, they couldn't even get arrested. There was one guy that, I'm not going to name any names, but he has some number ones, like in Texas, and came up and play a show in Tahlequah where we live, and not a single person knew who he was.
No.
And on stage, he's like, "This is my current number one." You guys probably heard it sing along.
Yep.
Not one person.
Yep.
Not one person was singing. And
that goes back to there's only like, and if you really have to subtract us now, there used to be like only 5 all Texas Red Dirt stations in the entire world that played nothing but. And if you're programming a station that only has to play like one or two, like one Texas Red Dirt song every other hour, it's going to be Cody Johnson and Aaron Watson and Casey Donahue and Josh Abbott, and it's going to be our biggest names, and the biggest names with music that fits well in between Carrie Underwood and Kenny Chesney, And so you could be a huge name. You could be Whiskey Myers, huge name, but nobody's going to play them between Carrie Underwood and Kenny Chesney. That would sound horrible. So you can't only just be a huge name. You have to be one of, Cody Johnson's music fits perfectly in the middle of George Strait and Carrie Underwood. You know what I mean? It fits perfectly. You know what I mean? So if you're programming one of those radio stations and you're only going to get to play 12 Texas Red Dirt songs in the entire day, are you going to play Whiskey Myers? You know what I mean? Of course not, because that sounds like a rock and roll. It's going to sound like a fart in church, man. It's just going to stick out, So when you program a radio station, you think about that stuff. So if you're only playing those big names, you know what I mean? So if you're programming an all Texas Red Dirt station, that's completely different. Then that gives you license to reach out and play the Whiskey Myers and the Cody Johnsons and Flatland and Ragland.
And I feel like at that point, those turn into your, that if you're an all Texas Red Dirt station, or primarily, I feel like the Carrie Underwoods and the Kenny Chesneys turn into, Cody Johnson, Randy Rod, the quote unquote core artists,
right,
as they call them down there, and then the sprinkle-ins turn into the Gunner Fours and the all the other people kind of up and coming. So I don't even know. I feel like there's a lot of stations out there in Texas. I know that there's close to 100 that report to a chart. In general, but I don't really know of any that play 100% anymore. Even the bigger stations with like
the Ranch in Fort Worth, they're not all Texas Red Dirt anymore. Who plays it? I'm not sure if James still does down there at the Outlaw. Last I heard, he was branching out into more of the independent stuff too, instead of just playing Texas Red Dirt. He was doing kind of the same thing I'm doing. I know. I'm pretty sure JR in Lubbock. I'm pretty sure Lubbock's all Texas Red Dirt still.
I think the Rebel. Yeah, I think that I was going to say I can probably count on one hand how many stations in Texas and in Oklahoma, to be honest with you, that actually play just flat out
nothing but.
I'd say exactly. Like I can't even think of a whole lot. And not trash talking any stations. Take the Ranch, the Ranch for instance. They're the sound of Texas, quote unquote. So they'll play Miranda Lambert and ZZ Top, Stevie Ray Vaughan, all of the Texas artists,
right?
It's just, man, I feel like anymore, but I feel like a lot of people have kind of started to switch to the format that you're going.
It's only because when a lot of us started playing Texas Red Dirt, it was an alternative to Nashville. That's exactly like you were a Alan Jackson, George Strait, Kenny Chesney. You love that kind of old what country was supposed to sound like. And then all of a sudden, I remember hearing my first one with rap, that Jason Aldean song, that road something dirt
Killing
road.
on the dirt road.
Yeah, and he had that rap part in the middle, and it's like that for me was like, oh, I can't. If we're going there, then I'm done. And sure enough, it just kind of got that way. Like every song had that same clap track and that same snap track, and and it just was, Texas Red Dirt wasn't doing that. It was still country music, although some of the stuff just sounded like, Prophets and Outlaws had that kind of soul, Texas soul country to it, But all in all, it was still, country music. And then here in the last 2-3 years, it's kind of shifted to where they've adopted some of that Texas Red Dirt sound. And that's the other thing. I don't ever bash that. That's just the way music evolves. Right. I mean, you don't make music anymore that sounds like Elvis. You know what I mean? Music evolves. Right. Rock and roll has evolved. Country will evolve.
And I agree. We're not trash talking.
No,
we're not yet.
For this station, for 95.7 in Amarillo, where there are 3 Nashville stations, I did not need to be a stepchild of Nashville station. Playing bands that only a slim part of the world knew about, and it's just not. It just wasn't working for us anymore because the music had changed. So I reverted us. I'm trying to pull us back to where we have a sound that what used to be associated with Texas, with a real country sound. So, and it's not.
I feel like a lot of people are going one of two ways. Like, neither way is the right or wrong option. But I see a lot of stations, and I can think of 5 off the top of my head that go towards the other side of what Texas music is turning into, versus like, what you're playing. So I feel like maybe 3 years ago, we came to this pitchfork in the road where people were going one way, which was the co-Wetzel core sound of, music, or I've heard people call it like shred dirt or frat rock, just kind of that.
Right.
Pecos and the Rooftops and Colby Cooper and Reed Southall and all these guys, and then you've got the people that are I don't know, like 3 or 4 years ago it went, are you going to be kind of like Tyler Childers, or are you going to be kind of like Co-Wetzel? And I feel like most musicians and stations kind of went one or the other way. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's kind of how it went.
I want people to play the music that they want to play. That is always the best music, is when an artist doesn't try to fit themselves into one or the other. Man, play what you're good at. You know what I mean? And I don't want to name any artists, but I know of at least one where I'm a fan of his music, and I wish he'd quit trying to be other artists on his social media accounts, because if he would just try to succeed, he would succeed. He'd be a household name, but he tries so hard, and it just makes you look like a wannabe, and it's just not good. I don't even want to get into those kind of names, because those guys have hardcore fans, man, and they love to attack you too if you disagree.
Right.
Which is another thing. Like what you like. It's okay if you listen to my station, and I got a text this morning from a guy. Man, this is what I listen to every time you play that Rhymes with Bucket song. I'll throw it out there that the name of the song is, which I love. And he showed me it was an old song, and I go, that's because you're old as AF. And he was like, man, I'm just messing with you. And I'm like, you gonna mess with me, I'm gonna mess with you back. I said, I get it, but you better be able to take it.
Well, and I feel like stuff will come back around here pretty soon, because I feel like, this bubble, I feel like will pop
everything changes
in Texas country music, and what's popular right now, or what has been popular in the last few years. I keep using Co-Wetzel as a example, but I feel like he has been kind of the pinnacle. He's
got a lot of guys out there
of the line.
He's got a lot of them out there wanting to be him. That's for sure. He did his work. People don't remember his other CDs that were out before the one where they're sitting in the hot tub or sitting in the blow up pool or whatever with their drinks. There was one or two other CDs out. He worked, man. That's like, all of a sudden Cody Johnson was huge. But, I could show you a picture I took of like 7 of his CD singles that he had sent to radio. I mean, those guys all work, and that's kind of the disservice that Texas Red Dirt music throws out there, I think, is they make it look easy. and they miss out on all the work part that those guys have put into their shows and their promotions and everything else. And it's because, this is their first single and they got a number one on the TRRR. You know what I mean? Well, you didn't see them playing at all the bars. You didn't see them, scraping up money to make that one single. You didn't see them scraping up all that money to hire a promoter. You know what I mean? You missed out on all that. No, there is no easy way to do it like Zane Williams sings about in that song, It's all work. There's no overnight success.
And if you're just now listening to Cody Johnson, like when Gear Rodeo came out, like you're like 12 years behind, probably, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, he's a lot of those guys, just ended up kind of breaking through the Texas stratosphere, which, a lot of people kind of shame on, to be honest with you. And I think it's kind of crap that they do, because it's like, well, why are you going to hate on people for wanting to,
dumb too,
be more successful or trying to open up the.
If you're a plumber and you make good money and somebody said, now you got to, I'll give you $1 million to be my plumber. You just got to wear my, use my tools. And, no plumber in his right mind would turn down the $1 million. But all of a sudden, if you go to Nashville and wear their uniform and use their tools, that guy's a jerk, like how's that work, man? That ain't fair. You know what I mean? You say that about Pat Green when he goes to do Wave on Wave, but if they offered you $1 million to go be an electrician at Electrician A Company, which is a corporate company, you'd have said yes.
Mm-hmm.
So bands can be the worst enemy of this music scene, and that is for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like people, the amount of shit that's talked, because in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Parker McCollum will take this guy as an example. Texas artists as anybody else, pretty much. 5 or 6 years ago, he won or placed in Larry Joe Taylor's songwriting competition. He was like at the bottom of the flyer, but you take him and he's got 3 million Spotify listeners. Guess who his related artists are on Spotify? Shane Smith, Co Wetzel, Colton Moore, all these other guys. And then when people listening to the other mainstream stations in Amarillo, go look up Parker McCollum on Spotify because they heard him in between Kenny Chesney and Carrie Underwood.
Right.
The related artists are going to be Shane Smith.
Yep.
So I don't know why people hate so much on
that goes
Cody
way
Johnson.
That goes back to Pat Green and Wave on Wave. Oh, he sold out to Nashville. Right. You know what I mean? And Jack Ingram. Oh, he sold out. You know what I mean? I'm like, come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what? It's okay to like what you want to like. You know what I mean? Don't worry. Who cares? Who cares what anybody else? If you like Co Wetzel, good. You like Kenny Chesney, good on you. You know what I mean? If you like Florida Georgia Line, I don't care. And then you shouldn't care either. You can like all three. Who gives a rat's behind, man? It does not matter. It should not affect your life. You should not go up to your friend and go, well, your music sucks. You know what I mean? Because music is different to everybody. Dude, there wasn't a redeeming lyric in the Beastie Boys Fight for Your Right to Party, but you can't point out a guy who doesn't love that song. You know what I mean? But there's nothing, lyrically, you're like, dude, Mom threw away my best porno mag? That might be the best line in the whole song. You know what I mean?
Right.
And really, is that like a Tyler Childers lyric? Is that a John Prine worthy song?
that box themselves into like, I listen to blank genre. You know what I mean?
You're missing out.
I don't know. And you hear so much of that stuff and I know that you know this because you came from rock. So did I. Whenever people are like, oh, I only listen to heavy metal, deathcore music. You know what I'm saying? Or I only listen to classic rock, and it's like, man, you're not going to be able to go to a concert in 20 years because none of them are going to be around.
Right.
So, and I hate people that box themselves into a certain type of genre.
You're missing out.
Yeah, it's super.
That's all I can say. I was spinning Texas Red Dirt while I was at Warped Tour on the weekend. Because you should go out and enjoy as much as you can because there's some good stuff out. You ain't going to like it all, but, Texas Red Dirt is still my main, and now the independent stuff, the Americana side of things, is still my main passion. I love them the most. But, dude, you put a Blink-182 album on, I'm probably going to stop and listen to it with you because you should enjoy it all.
Yeah, hey, let's talk about that for a second. We'll take a detour and we'll dive back into the Texas stuff here in a second. But so we both have a big background in rock music. In high school I was in, metal bands and rock bands and stuff. and I know that you were in that scene for forever and, DJ'd in it and stuff too. What are some of the things that you wish that country music as a whole, whether it be the business, whether it be the musicians, the management, the radio, whatever, what are some things that you wish that country would take from the rocks format?
The Texas Red Dirt side of things, they're real similar, aren't they? From that Warped Tour kind of thing. You still got guys that like to party with the bands.
They are.
And, yeah.
Yep. And the grinding one fan at a time, I feel like,
they're accessible.
Exactly. And the touring, I mean, I was telling somebody the other day, like they had, there's like a festival that was it was like a festival in Tahlequah, and it was like the bands had 30, 40-minute slots or whatever, and they were going to be able to. There's like 5 or 6 bands within a matter of like 3 or 4 hours, and I was like, shoot, like growing up, man, that was a Wednesday night at the local club with me and a bunch of local bands, dude. And
I'll tell you what, I wish I've discussed this with a few people here in studio before, and anybody out there, you feel free to steal this idea because I just want it to happen so I can go. I wish there was like a Warped Tour for country music, for independent country music, where they would do the exact same thing. Warped Tour. And so you don't just have Larry Joe Taylor Fest at Melody Mountain for 5 days or whatever it is. You know what I mean? You had Larry Joe Taylor Fest one day in Stephenville.
Yeah.
You moved it up to Lubbock, and then you moved it up to Amarillo, and then you moved it up to Oklahoma City, and you moved it to Tulsa. You know what I mean? I wish they did something like that. And anybody out there, you can feel free to steal that because I would like to go. I would like to go.
Craig, you could just go to Stephenville.
That would be fun.
I think that would be.
It'd be a blast.
Yeah, they were doing something like that, like some of the Oklahoma artists, like quote unquote the Tulsa Sound, Fulbright, and I'm probably saying his names wrong, Fulbright and Tovar and Paul Benjamin and a few other people. They were doing like the Tulsa Sound tour.
Yeah.
They did like 15 or 20 days, like all across the East Coast, and I'm pretty sure they like sold a couple of them out, But if people would take that, I agree. If they took that type of format and applied it to country music, like did like an LJT up in Chicago. You know what I'm saying?
Dude.
Like,
wouldn't that be fun?
I think that that would be so awesome. But I mean, to be honest with you though, I'm looking at a lot of festivals and stuff, and we're in that time of the year where festivals are kind of getting, leaked or announced or whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the big country music festivals, like in Montana, Idaho, Oregon, even the Chicago Smokeout, whatever, half of those
have Turnpike on them.
Yeah, they got Turnpike and Shane Smith and all these other big artists. I'm like, man, this is kind of crazy that, half of the bill for a country music fest that had 0 Texas artists on it, a decade ago is half Texas artists, and it just kind of blew my mind. So I feel like in a way that's kind of happening, but starting artists like LJT does,
Do you remember when Sam Riggs lit that guitar on fire down there at Larry Joe Taylor and then got kicked out? And he was wearing a Blink-182 shirt, I think maybe that one. And everybody was like, I can't believe you wore a Blink-182 shirt, da, da, da. Like 2 years later, somebody cool in the scene like Cleto or something like that, was wearing one. Everybody was like, that is so cool. He's wearing a Blink-182 shirt. I'm like, you guys are such hypocrites, man. 2 years ago, you were trashing a dude.
Colby Cooper. Colby Cooper.
Yeah.
It was just weird, man. A few years ago, it became cool to sound like, and don't get me wrong, I love it. I love the majority of the music that was influenced by these, new Texas rock bands and stuff.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it wasn't cool for a Texas band to sound like Giovanni and the Guns 5 years ago. It just wasn't.
Music
what
just
I'm saying?
changes.
It was cool.
I'm telling you, it is okay. Everybody should just be glad that it does. Otherwise, we didn't ever had the Beatles. We didn't ever had Zeppelin. We didn't ever had Aerosmith. We wouldn't have had the Stones or the Who or Hendrix or grunge or 80s rock or nothing, man. We wouldn't have your favorite rock band if rock music did not evolve from Elvis. And it's the same with country.
Yeah.
You would never have your favorite country artist if Hank wasn't out there doing what he was doing in the start, and then it evolves into, it's just a thing, man. You would never have Merle if it wasn't for, and then Merle wouldn't influence George, and George wouldn't influence, whatever, dude. That's just music. It's got to change. It has to. You want to listen to your parents'
it'll
music?
phase out too. It'll phase out. I mean, I love 2000s pop punk or 90s grindcore stuff that was popular up there, like in Philly and then 856. And I love all that stuff.
Yep.
But it phased out.
Oh yeah. Dude, your kids don't want to listen to your music, so it will always phase out. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Your kids eventually go, "That's my dad's band." My dad liked the Byrds. I ain't listening to the Byrds. You know what I mean?
To be honest with you, I think that singer-songwriter stuff is going to be coming back around pretty soon. Like, there's a few artists that I see up and coming, like in the Texas Red Dirt Americana scene, and I feel like they're like on a pretty big rise, and they sound nothing like what's popular right now. And I really do. I mean, people are going to listen to this podcast in 2 or 3 years and be like, "Wow, they might have been right," because I feel like the singer-songwriter stuff is just going to come back around at some point, because all these big bands, again, Coetzel, Geo, Reed South Paul, Pakes and the Rooftops, they're all going to go do something national, and they're all going to break out of what was popular here, and then the new wave of music, and be the next class of LJT. And to be honest with you, it's going to happen. I feel like singer-songwriters are going to come back around in a couple of years. That's going to be the new co. So what are some things that you would say if you were talking to somebody's manager and you're like, "Hey, I'm a radio person and here's what you're doing wrong for this artist"? Or what's something that you could say to an artist in regards to their touring, or in regards to like how they need to be expanding their work or doing it more effectively?
Go where you're getting played first. Start there. You know what I mean? If you know that you've got a following in Lubbock, then you just should be calling the Blue Light. Or, dude, it does not matter how big or how small a venue is in a city. If you're getting played in that city, then go play the smallest venue that they have. Get your name out in there. Hey, you've heard my songs on radio. Here I am. The bigger venues will want you eventually. You know what I mean? Because they're like, oh, they'll be slower on the nights you're playing at the smaller venues, and eventually you're selling out the smaller venues, and the bigger venues are calling you. But start wherever you're getting played, even if it's just your hometown. You got to conquer. There used to be a saying like that, didn't there? You got to conquer your hometown before you can.
Yeah, you got to conquer the block before you can conquer the world.
Yeah, you know
like
what I mean?
Yep. What's the other? Quit trying to boil the ocean. Boil the water in the pot first.
Yeah,
before you try.
Yep.
Before you try to boil the ocean.
Exactly.
Yeah. And one thing that I feel like you can do, being an artist that is trying to get into a market, outside of asking other musicians where to play and stuff. Like say a musician comes to Craig and visits him in the studio. I feel like one of the best things that they can do is say, "Hey, what venues are out there promoting with you guys?"
Yep.
Because it keeps it all in the circle at that point, because you're only just going to promote their show if they get a show with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of, there's places in town that they book a lot of our artists and do not advertise with us. Well, I can't talk about it. If you're playing, if venue A advertises with us and you're going to go play venue B that doesn't advertise with us, I can't send people to venue B, because then venue A is going to go, "Why are you talking about them? I'm paying you to talk about me, and instead you're talking about them." So I can't. Now I don't tell anybody you shouldn't go, and sometimes I'll even use some of those as like, "Why don't you come by the studio?" And I'll use that as try to get that venue to advertise with us so I can talk more freely, more often about the venue. But, I can't. Yeah, that's one thing there's a big venue in town, and shoot, man, the people they're booking out there, nobody would know who they were if it wasn't for us, and they don't spend a dime with us, which kind of bites, but there's nothing you can do about that, So
I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah, and everybody else that you've mentioned, we kind of ran into that same thing, because the best gig that we were getting at the time was the one that wasn't promoting with you, and we're like, gosh dang, I wish we could just get a show with the venue that was promoting with you, but
you ain't going to go into McDonald's and they're not going to tell you should be going to Burger King. It's not
exactly.
Happen,
exactly. I mean? Yeah. Hey, I feel like getting in touch with the venue that is promoting with the radio station, you're in this triangle now of artist, venue, promotion, and everybody is promoting the other two.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if you can get in that venue and get in there, I mean, like I said, you're only going to be promoting like the artist anyway if they get on that, if they get a show at that place. So I feel like the best thing an artist can do is go in, if you're in there for an interview or, cold calling you or asking another musician, like,
right.
where's it happening at?
Yep.
Quit trying to Google Amarillo bars. If you're like a musician trying to get a gig in Amarillo, don't Google search it, because you might find the whatever tavern back on the other side of the town that people don't go to. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Yep.
I feel like, finding go look at the roster of
who else is playing there?
Events.
Yeah. Man, I tell
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
I've probably said that 100 times too. Is you'll get these interviews and somebody will be talking to an interview. Well, so and so co-wrote this song with me, and and they'll play the song, and then off the air, I'm like, dude, if so and so co-wrote that with you, that guy's playing all the time at the venue down the street. You need to ask that guy, hey, can you please say a nice word to the venue for me? You know what I mean? You guys are obviously friends. You co-wrote a song together. Ask him if he'll drop your name to the local venue. Hey man, this is my buddy. He co-wrote this song with me. I know I play your venue, every 3 months or so. Can you give him a try? You know what I mean? And that's, I guess people just don't want to ask, you know what I mean? Or don't want to, maybe use your connections. But man, music business is all about networking.
Yeah, man. I feel guilty sometimes about how much I ask from other people.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if anybody asked me to help them out,
Yeah.
I feel like I would.
Yep.
I mean, I've sent people spreadsheets of venues and that kind of stuff. I mean, I asked you the other day, I was like, hey, if you talk to this ex radio promoter, feel free to put in a good word for us, because I'm trying to like hound this person. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know what all I can do for you, but if you needed me to loan you $20, here you go, man.
Yeah,
or whatever,
Yep.
Yep. So, but yeah, connections. Why are you making connections if you're not going to use them? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
As long as you're not greedy when it comes back to you returning the favor.
Yep.
Like when you put out a new song, like on Spotify or on radio or whatever, you should be hitting up every single one of your musician friends and saying, hey, can you go share this for me? But be prepared to have them ask you the same thing.
Yeah.
Whenever,
one hand washes the other.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
If you can find an open jam in that town, you should go to the open jam, because you'll meet the other musicians who are getting booked in that town. And you might even meet the bar owner who might want to book you after he hears you.
Exactly.
You got to swallow your pride once in a while and go, I'm nobody, and so I'm going to go play the open jam. I'm
going to go play the open mic and figure out, Yep. And going back to Gunner, I've been friends with this guy for 4 or 5 years now. The first time, Raglan played in Lubbock in 2017. Autumn and I played an acoustic show out there, and Gunner and them played with us, and it was just all acoustic, and he's been out there grinding for a long time, and I feel like I would see him every 6 months that we'd be going out and do the Amarillo Lubbock route, and I'd be like, where are you playing at? He's like, man, I can't get a show in X venue or whatever, and he wouldn't be mad that I was saying all this. He'd be happy to. I know we're talking about him, honestly.
Yeah.
But and he'd be like, man, I can't get a gig at X because so and so's always playing there, or so and so won't pay attention. And then about a year and a half ago, I said, man, every Monday night at the Blue Light, they have a freaking songwriting thing. Go play that thing.
Yep.
So you can get your own gig. And he's been out there playing the songwriter night every Monday, or that I've seen. And I think like last month, he finally got a full band headlining gig at the Blue Light. And I was like, there you go, man. Like, I mean, you have to be present to win, in my opinion.
Yep.
You can't be Joe Schmo from, Helotes, Texas, calling in Lubbock and saying, I want to play at the Blue Light. Oh, have you ever played here? Well, no. You have to. I mean, you got to be there.
Yep.
Or you have to be big there.
Yep. You got to, man, you just got to get out. I mean, it's funny because we're talking about Cody Johnson. He'll tell you how he got started and how many radio stations turned him down. Like I've heard him interviewed, when he was, after his first single got out, and I've had him in studio too, but it's like, I probably turned him down the first time. I don't remember, but I remember him telling a story about how many times he got turned down. And I thought, man, did I ever turn that dude down? I hope not. He's never said anything to me if I did, but you know what I mean? I mean, you just got to, the biggest stars have done exactly what you're doing. You know what I mean? They just don't talk about it. You don't hear that in the interviews. Right. You know what I mean? You hear about their new music or what's going on or who they're dating or whatever, but shoot, dude. Miranda Lambert used to play bars. I remember Casey Musgraves. I remember Rich O'Toole talking about there was a club that she was like a bartender or a waitress at, and they used to, coax her into singing a song on open mic nights, you know what I mean? Because she was really good and they liked her. And, But man, everybody, there's very few people who didn't go through everything that every other musician is going through. You know, you just got to keep at it.
Well, and it doesn't. I say it doesn't get easier. I mean, you end up having people take a workload off of you.
Yeah.
As you go on. But there's a shit ton of work to do in any sort of music business and in any genre. I bet you Ariana Grande busted her freaking ass, and anybody else in the rock world,
man,
3 Days Grace or Nickelback. Yep. I mean, they all grinded, yep. And
there's no regional scene for those guys that they can become a celebrity in. There's no Texas rock scene. There's no dude. I used to live out in California. We used to go down to Sunset Strip all the time and see bands at the Whiskey A Go Go, and they used to do no Monday. On Mondays they called it No Bozos Jams, and they would get all these bands would come in and play 3 songs and then leave, 3 songs and then leave, 3 songs and then leave. And I'm like, and most of them probably had to sell tickets in order to get that slot to do it.
To pay to play.
There's no regional rock scene anywhere, you know what I mean, where you can just become a big star, like we talk about Seattle with grunge. There was a regional scene there, but there wasn't a chart to support them. There wasn't a ton of radios play to support them, and there was no streaming back then, so it just goes from being discovered to being national. And it's still kind of like that. Right. Texas Red Dirt, this whole format is very, very, very lucky to have what they have, And so it's you think it's hard to
even
get
over
here.
there in LA or New York or Chicago or Tennessee or anything, you still can be there for. I mean, I hear stories every once in a while about so and so songwriter moved there and in 6 months got a publishing deal, and
right.
then, what? But in the Texas scene, man, you can't get around it. You got to grind here for 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Yep.
I mean, it just is what it is.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And it's not easy. It doesn't matter what genre you're in, and it doesn't matter if somebody bought you, whatever. Right. Money can't buy success either. Money can open doors.
Money can buy you spins.
I think. Exactly. Listen, so can free jars of whiskey, CDs, and that. What do you have to say about that, Craig?
What about dude? I feel horribly guilty when people buy me gifts. I'm just being straight honest. There was some guy that was kind of trying to get out there and trying to get us to play his music, and he left like a thing of Crown. And I called his promoter and I said, "Look, would you please ask him not?" I go, "This had to be like a $50 gift basket." I go, "I'm not going to play a song. It just doesn't fit what we're doing. I can't play a song." So every time he leaves something like this, I feel extremely guilty for taking it. You know what I mean? So like I'd come in and it'd just be on my if he was here, I would have told him to take it back, but it would just show up and he'd drop it off and leave. And I'd be like, "Dude, stop. Tell him to stop doing that." I feel horrible about him leaving me gifts. You know what I mean? Like I'm not playing a song.
How do you feel about quote unquote? And I don't want to call it bribery, or payola or anything like that. But how do you feel about?
Well, the streaming radio stations don't have to worry about any of that stuff. There are no FCC rules for streaming stations. So you can buy a banner ad on a streaming station and they'll give you, 80 spins on a chart, that they fill out the paperwork on. And so it makes you look like a hero, where they're not even actually playing you but twice a week.
I'll tell you one thing that you can do, and maybe I'm giving out bad advice, and I'm genuinely curious about what you think about this. In certain markets that we played in up until COVID, I haven't done this post-COVID, but maybe once or twice locally. But there was one year back in 2019, probably. It's about time. Yeah, okay. It's 2019. It's about time you started spending this. There was a time where I said, okay, I'm going to take X amount of dollars and I'm going to use this solely on advertising budget for local radio stations. Yeah. And we took $200 and split it up between like 10 or 15 stations. Not $200, 10 or 15 stations, $200 per station. We spent we're spending all this money on, record promotion. Right. Why don't we actually try to get an ad going for these stations or whatever? Would you be for or against an artist doing something like that?
I don't mind if they don't expect me to play the song. Like we've done that, and the hip hop station here at the cluster has done that. You know, where somebody will buy, you know, a 3-minute commercial and they'll say, "Hey, this is, you know, John Doe, and here's a quick listen to my new cut, you know, ABC 1 2 3," and then they'll play part of the song, and then John Doe will come back on and go, "You can find my new song wherever you stream," or, you know, blah 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 blah, you know, and they'll turn it into like a 2-minute commercial or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now I'm almost guaranteeing you that they think that's going to get the station to play the song, and you know, some stations might. I wouldn't, because losing listeners all day long because your bad song is on my radio station because you bought an ad is not worth it to me. You know, I had actually somebody here locally one time go, "Dude, don't play it. If it's not good, don't play it." He goes, "You think they're going to hire you if you get fired for bad ratings?" You're absolutely right. I don't care what. So you know, in the long game, you're not gonna hire me and give me a salary and health insurance if I play your song and then get fired because my ratings go down.
Right.
So it's
so if it's a, and I guess let me rephrase my question. So there was about 10 or 15 stations that were already playing Raglan.
Right.
Would you recommend, like, say you were playing so and so and they were on your top 25 and they were coming to play in Amarillo and they said, "Hey, I want to drop $200. What can $200 get me as far as advertisement?"
Good or bad idea on for your gig? Yeah, that's been done like several times.
Say Raglan's playing at Hoots.
Yeah.
Or Golden Light or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm going to spend $200 on an ad.
Yeah.
Would you recommend that?
I don't.
Would you recommend against that?
I think that's. I don't think that's bad money. I think that can work out really good, especially if the venue's not advertising or they're just advertising like a small schedule, or you know what I mean. You know, right. That can. I wouldn't discourage that from anybody. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah, because that's why we had done it in the first place. You know, not to name any names, but X venue that Raglan has played at probably 3 or 4 times used to not promote, and you know, maybe they still do or don't or whatever. But back in the day, I was like, man, well, if we're going to play this venue, then we need to probably buy our own ads or something, you know. So we kind of looked at 10 or 15 markets where it was decently lucrative to buy ads on those stations, but I was just kind of curious on like what you thought, if you thought it was a good or a bad idea if you're already playing an artist, like if they were to go and try to buy
that, because sometimes you can't, like we were talking about earlier, you can't talk about venue B because they're not advertising and venue A is. Well, now venue B is advertising technically, you know, the band's advertising it, so it can help. You know, and all you're doing really is, you know, if you spend $200, you're hoping to sell. That's going to let 20 people know that you're playing.
Exactly,
and you'll get your money back. Yeah.
And I will say that for anybody listening to this that has never bought a radio ad, if the radio is actually spending you, consider it there and kind of factor out like, okay, if I'm spending $200, how easily could I recoup this $200 in merch and in ticket sales?
Right.
And if you think you could break even, or if you think you could lose a little bit,
right,
comfortably lose money, you know, then go for it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it's $200, kind of like walking into a casino, you have to expect to lose everything that you're going to spend, you know, and at the very least, you're going to get a bunch of radio ads where people are hearing your name. You know, at the end of the day, it's still going to be beneficial, but you know, how beneficial is going to be.
You know, in radio, when we go talk to people about advertising, you know, you get plumbers on the radio. It's not because you want the plumbers. It's not because you think people are going to call a plumber right now. You know, you're really hoping that when an emergency happens, that they'll remember the plumber that your radio station is talking about all the time.
Right.
It's the same thing with the band. They might not be able to make it out to the show, but they like what they're hearing, even in the commercial, the bit of the song, and so they might go look you up and stream your music, get on your website, maybe buy some merch, catch you the next time you're here for sure. I mean, a lot of that's you're playing the long game, you know.
Exactly, yeah. And with advertisement, I feel like a lot of people don't recognize, and this goes for Facebook advertising, this goes for radio, this goes for you know, any kind of marketing. Really, like, how many times have I scrolled past the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus or Paramore or any like old rock band that I'm playing in Oklahoma City, and I saw the ad the 5th time, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go see how much tickets are. Give me the 5th time to, you know, even check it out. So
I think they say you're bombarded with 10,000 messages a day, and I think if you think about everything from the car in front of you with a big old logoed sticker on for either the car company or some restaurant or whatever school that their kid goes to the billboards, to the shop signs that you see driving home, to on the radio, and then on your cell phones, and then on TV. It's probably about right 10,000 messages a day. So yeah, you can't just expect to play it for something to hit one time and then to go, yeah, I need to go to that. It's a repetitiveness for sure. Just like why we play your song so many times, before
exactly.
we cut it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and let's talk about that for a second, because I feel like you guys do things a little bit different over there.
We play the song till it bugs you.
Exactly. and on the artist side of things, we have things that are called tracking, which I don't.
Yeah.
A lot of people listening to this may not even know what tracking is, but it's a way that you can look at how many spins you're getting in each market based on the chart that you're on, and you can pay for it on a weekly, monthly, by the single basis or whatever. And we look at it, and there's a lot of people that will just go from spinning it 0 times up until 30.
Yeah.
All automatically go from having the song at 0 up to having 30 spins. I feel like that's unhealthy, and I hope that you believe me, because I'm the artist, and I'm going from 0 to 30. I feel like there's a better way of going about it, and I feel like in the past you have kind of been a little more strategic about the way that you phasing things in or out, or what you do in between singles if an artist is on a hiatus or any of that kind of stuff. Talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Well, the general rule for like radio is we've got to play a song 300 times for someone to kind of get to where they recognize the song, they're familiar with the song, and they decide they like the song. And that's just and it can't be 300 times over 3 months. It's got to be 300 times over 6 weeks, 7 weeks, something like that. And so you've got to play it heavier so people hear it, and then they can decide whether or not they like it. And then right about that time, usually, if people are liking it, you bump it up and you play it even more. Because now people really want to hear it. They're like, oh, you kind of get to, I wish they play this more often. I really like this song, But then it just makes the artist familiar. So they should be able to pick out Autumn Ragland's voice by now, because we're on single whatever 5 from you, and we play each one 500 to 600 times. You know what I mean? So people get used to hearing her voice. Yeah. And so when you come to town, they should be able to know who Ragland is. And if they want to go see you, you know what I mean? If they're hearing all the marketing messages, then they will show up, kind of thing. Which kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. But you've got to be – so in the Texas world, they keep sending you singles. They'll send you singles that, if you put out an album, they'll send you 3 or 4 singles that you can work over like a 1.5 period of time. In the Americana world, they just send you the album with one suggested track, and that's pretty much it. So that doesn't really work. If I want you to like Zephaniah O'Hora as much as I like Zephaniah O'Hora, then I need to play the first song that they send, and then after we're done with it, I go back and listen to the album and get my own single off there and play that one, and then go back to the album again and pull the third one off. Yeah, because they don't push them at all, So you're I'm doing that now. Chris Jones and the Flycatchers at Oklahoma City. I'm playing. I went back and just dug out my own single from him. Charlie Marie from Providence, Rhode Island. I'm on my second single from her, and I'll probably play one more off of her album, Ramble On, and. You just gotta get art. Otherwise, you're always playing a new artist and a new song, man. And everybody loves new music. But if you only ever hear a new song after new song, if you turn on college radio, every song is new. You just can't do it for very long, because you want to be able to sing along to the songs. You want to be able to turn it up and roll the windows up and sing at the top of your lungs, kind of thing. And if you're only ever playing a song 100 times and people aren't hearing it, then they never get used to it, and they never get used to the band, and they never sing along, and the song comes and goes before it helps.
Especially if it's 100 times, if it's 25 spins for 4 weeks, and then you just drop it all of a sudden. I feel like that doesn't do anybody any good either.
No.
On that note, because I know that you spin a lot of Americana, and when Americana versus Texas Red Dirt, Americana, the album charts, what you do a pretty good job of, whether you're on air or whether you're talking about the countdown that you guys do or whatever, is you guys actually name the artist after the song. You're like, that was so-and-so song by Gunner Ford in the Interstate,
Same
they're
thing.
playing at the, whatever.
Yep. that goes back to that same thing. Is because if you're Kenny Chesney or George Strait, everybody knows what you sound like because you grew up listening to them. Or either you did or your parents did or somebody. You know what I mean, kind of thing. You don't have to tell people that's AC/DC. I mean, everybody knows what an AC/DC song. Every album sounds like it's part 2 of the last one. And so with our music, a lot of it is brand new, and it is artists that you're not used to hearing. So, I don't have to backsell. They call it back selling and front selling. I don't have to backsell Randy Rogers or Wade Bowen or, some of those guys have been in this scene a long time, Jason Boland. But I do have to backsell Charles Wesley Godwin because he's brand new to the whole station. And I do have to backsell those kind of guys, So, yeah, you do, and you just try to, you hope they show up because of it. Because part of that's my own, man. I really want to see that guy. I hope he comes to town.
Right. And I mean, just naming the artist after the song. I mean, there was a station in Tulsa that called 104.5 The Edge, and growing up, they always were just like, we're the best station out there because we tell you who's playing what. So whenever new bands would, come and play on their station or whatever, they'd be like, this is Panic at the Disco. The first time I ever heard Panic at the Disco was because they were just like, that's their new song.
Yeah.
And I thought it was freaking Fall Out Boy.
Yeah.
Until, I think everybody did, to be honest with you. But
we used to get albums in a long, long time ago, and there'd be a sticker on them. If you play it, say it. That was always because the record companies were trying to get them to do it, Yep.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it shows up on your radio. You can stream it. We tell people, download the app if you missed the title of a song.
Right.
If you download the app, you can see like the last 15 songs played or something like that.
Right. And what's really cool, too, other stations, really with any song, we were sitting in Buffalo Wild Wings the other day, and a song came on, and Autumn goes, I really like the melody of this, because Autumn's a big songwriter / melody person. She goes, I really like this. Who is this? And it was like a local station here. And you pull out Shazam. You can ask Siri, like, hey Siri, who sings the song? And there's something by Colby Cooper or whatever. And she's like, wow, that was the first Colby Cooper song I think that I've ever liked. So I mean, just being able to know the name of the artist, I guess is what I'm trying to get around to, is so instrumental to an art, because anybody can have a good song, but that was a good song. And then just dump it from your brain until the next time it comes on or something. Right. But I feel like really knowing the name of the artist is so important, and it's something that maybe a lot of DJs could do a better job of, instead of just spinning. I mean, I know I'm kind of trashing on some people. I'm really not trying to. I'm trying to not get in trouble with this. I know we've been pretty nice since the beginning of this, but
I keep waiting for you to bring up charts. like how we have only 5 stations playing this music, but there's like 12 different charts.
Okay, so this actually kind of goes back into what we were talking about a second ago. So I'm gonna get into that, and I'm gonna try to only get kind of canceled for you or I. So one big problem that I have, in which we were talking about spins and kind of phasing people in and out. One other big problem that I have with radio stations is people that do that, but also people that do that but actually don't even spin the song at all, period. Because that hurts the artist so freaking much. I know that PDs out there, program directors out there, thinking that they're helping this artist by giving them, reporting 30 spins and only spinning at 2 or whatever. That doesn't help us at all, because I know that you think that we're getting up there on the charts, and because really what charts are at the end of the day, for anybody that doesn't know, is an accumulation of all the 80 to 100 stations that report to that chart, or more. And if you're fake spinning a song and an artist goes and checks that chart and says, oh my gosh, we're getting spun 40 times in this town, we should go play there. We should go play there.
Yep.
Exactly. And then we go play there, and it does absolutely no good for us. And that pisses me off so much, because, we'll go to Amarillo and play 3-4 weeks ago whenever we were there. Autumn played the acoustic show downtown, and there was a good amount of people singing songs from, that 3 years ago that you started spinning, and even the new, Call My Bluff, which is our current radio single. I know that we're getting real spins here, but, we'll go play in so-and-so town in South or East Texas or whatever. I know a few different stations that are giving us the correct spins, and we've made that mistake of going over there, and not a single person, crickets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when we play like our current radio single or something, and it really does the artist no good at all. Why don't you elaborate on that for me?
Yeah, it doesn't, man. I don't know why people do that either. I have no, the best, just be honest. You know what I mean? If you don't like a song, then tell them you can't play the song. You know what I mean? It's your job that's on the line anyway. A lot of it I think gets down to where sometimes people are just friends. Sometimes it's that, like, oh man, Sam's a good guy. I don't want to, you know what I mean? I want to make sure, that I don't want to tell him I'm not playing his song. You know what I mean? And it's just
so I'm just going to tell
nobody
the charts that I'm playing it.
Yeah, nobody wants to call the baby ugly. You know what I mean?
Right.
Kind of thing. And I'm sure part of that is that, and then part of it is I'm sure part of it is goes back to ego. You know what I mean? You want big star, unnamed big star, to think that you're the cool DJ in the city and you're playing his music, so the big star will come by your radio station so you can get pictures with him or whatever like that, or tell people you know him, or you know what I mean. Maybe he'll text you and say thank you for playing my song, or none of that stuff ever happens. By the way, if I get him in the studio, it's because I asked. I straight up said, "Hey, can you send so and so by the studio? I'd like to help promote the show tonight." People haven't been going to shows lately. You might want to send so and so by here. Kind of thing. It's got nothing to do with, fake spins or anything like that. Man, I'm too old to care about whether or not an artist likes me or not.
Right. And I just hate it, dude, just because it's like, it blew my mind when we were doing our first couple of campaigns in Texas. And I brought that up to my record promoter, which I'm not going to name this person either, but I brought up to my record promoter, and my record promoter said, because I'd say something along the lines of, man, we're playing out in Lubbock or Amarillo or Hill Country or Corpus or all these stations. I'm like, we're getting like people coming out to shows and stuff, and I'm like, but you got X station that's spending us supposedly 45 times a week, and like not a single person at the show knew who Raglan was, and we didn't sell dropping merch, and we played like one of the worst gigs of our life. And I'm like, kind of expressed that to this person, that my radio promoter, and they're like, well, some stations you might be getting what we call votes. And I said, what the fuck? What is that?
Yeah.
And I said, what's a vote? And this person said, sometimes the station really likes us and really likes our song, but doesn't have the space to spin it.
Yeah.
So they'll just say that they're doing it that many times. And I'm like, what the fuck? That does not do us any good at all. I said, the reason why we get on the charts as an artist, it's not for everybody to think that we're a big badass rock star. I mean, I can name 5 people, maybe 10 off the top of my head, that have had number ones in the last 52 weeks on any Texas chart, that probably couldn't sell 20 tickets in Amarillo.
Yeah.
And it really just irritates the shit out of me, because we get on the charts because I use the charts and I use all of that stuff as tools for booking. I've had songs by Raglan go top 30 in Texas, and then other songs that went to number 62. The one that went 62, I feel like had a better response than the one that went 30, top 30, because the one that went 62 was getting less spins, but they were probably freaking real spins instead of,
fake ones. Yep.
Exactly. I mean, I'm the one on stage. I'm the one that's watching people's mouths singing, and it's just, this X song that you think would be big just because it's at the top of the charts. If it's ghost spins, then it's not doing anybody. You're throwing away money. You're throwing away.
There's too many of the charts to me. Period. You know what I mean? And it seems like it's a money grab for some people. Like I know how to make money off of Texas Radio. I'll start a chart. And then people can buy my chart. It's just too much, man. It's for a format, again, like you and I were talking about. There's only like 5 stations that play it 24/7. There's one of the original ones. And then there's one that's a monitor chart, and then there's one that's like all of a sudden popped up, and it's like some kind of club they want you to join because they're an association of some sort. And then, of course, there's an award show for that. And then, then there's a Spotify chart, and then there's an internet chart, and it's like, it's just like too much, dude. That's why we insist, if somebody said, well, on your chart, I go, we correct them right away. Ours is not a chart. It's just the top 25 songs on our station. It's really not even for the rest of the world. If you listen to our station, it's supposed to be able to go, I was wondering who sang that Call My Bluff song. Now I know. You know what I mean? Because it's on Twitter or it's on Facebook or something like that. You know, now I can match the song title to the name of the band. You know what I mean? Because that brings it back to familiarity of the artist on the station. You know, so we make sure that it's not a chart. We don't take.
Well, and I've even been guilty of calling it a chart.
Oh yeah,
in the past.
We get it,
also,
but
I mean, because
we'll correct you if we're around. Yeah, you know what I mean.
You know, yeah.
There's just too many. It's like, okay, that's an oversaturation for something that there's not that many stations playing the music. You can't have that many official Texas Red Dirt charts. It's just too many charts. You know, I even had one of them contact me. I said, I need you to take my name off of your chart. And they said, but why? We're just trying to support the artist. Well, there's already 2 charts out there that were here a long time, and they don't do anything wrong, and they support the artist with a chart. Why do I need your chart?
Right.
What is your chart doing different and better?
And I'm going to throw out something, too, that might make people feel a little uncomfortable, too. There's a lot of charts out there that people like to make, and you're actually doing injustice to all of the bigger artists that are probably years and miles ahead of these other small artists, and they're all on the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so this, you know, X chart that's came up in the last couple of years, like, has 2 or 3 core artists, and then, you know, a bunch of artists that have come up in the last year or two that are sitting ahead of Randy Rogers and Wade Bowen and Kevin Fowler.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're making X artists, you know, that couldn't sell 20 tickets in Amarillo bigger than Randy Rogers, when it's not like that.
Yeah.
But, and to play devil's advocate a little bit, there are, you know, 2 or 3 major charts, and I'm sure you know which ones I'm talking about. If you go and look at the top 20, those are all actually probably big artists in Texas. You know, there's not, you know, unless, you know, with the outliers of the people that we were talking about, that, you know, the 5 or 10 that have a number 1 or whatever, you know, but like I said, money talks, so do fake spins, you know, so it's just kind of like, it doesn't make any sense. But I think the more specific that a chart is, the less irrelevant that it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If it's just like, Craig, you are the number 1. You got the number 1 place as male radio DJs on Polk Street in Amarillo. You're number 1 this week.
Yep.
And it's just like,
I'm the only male.
Exactly. Yeah.
There might be like 3 of us, actually. I take it back. Yeah. Spinning country music, though. Yeah.
But, you know, and if you go, this is the number 1 song in the Northeast Texas Red Dirt chart.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you really kind of, the more you classify it, I'd say 2 or 3. And I think you know which ones I'm talking about. That actually are somewhat very reliable to a point. But the thing that doesn't make any sense to me is why people will report certain spins on one chart and then report X spins that are not equal to another chart. And I'm like, why would you do that?
Yeah. Well, there's one that monitors and finds out exactly how many you're actually playing, and then the other one's kind of like whatever you want to put number in there.
Yeah.
And so
it doesn't make
too.
The votes, you know, it doesn't make any sense. And me and you were talking the other day about a song that had just came out that was by an artist, and this artist had a featured artist on the song, and the promoter was like, you got to hop on this. It debuted at number whatever and has X many spins, and you're like, so you're telling me that it went from
you guys played 200.
What were the numbers on that?
It was like 211 times between 11 radio stations in 24 hours. And I'm like, wow. So they played, each one of them stations played it every other hour, huh?
Exactly.
That's a lot.
I mean, and it doesn't do, I can't say this enough, it doesn't do people any good.
Nope.
It absolutely, it doesn't do the artist. And the only person that it does good is the chart and the record promoters, they're stuffing their pockets full of banner ads and musicians that are paying them for fake spins. That's the only people that are actually benefiting from any of that bullshit vote stuff.
Yep. And then if you're playing in a market, try to visit the radio stations, not just Texas ones. If Texas one tells you no, go to the Nashville one. You know what I mean? You'd be surprised. Nobody ever asked the Nashville. I've got several artists, and I'm like, dude, your music fits across the street at the Nashville station 100%. You're only hitting me up because I'm quote-unquote known as the Texas Red Dirt. So you think I'm going to play your song, and I'm not. You know what I mean? But if you would just take 10 minutes and email somebody at the Nashville station, they'd probably be more than happy to talk to you. So don't always just think it's the independent radio station in town, you know, the Texas Red Dirt station, the Americana station. If they say no, I'm sure there's 3 other radio stations in every town. One of them might say yes, you know. So don't limit yourself to just this format all the time. You know, it's a big world out there. Be humble. Make yourself a Dropbox so you have that to send to either the promoters or DJs or whatever. You should be able to, like, basically as you're on the phone with somebody, be able to pull that up and text it to them. So when you hang up, the guy's got your song, you know, or whoever the DJ is, you know. I say guy, Corliss has got your song, you know what I mean? So they have it right away, you know, and then just keep plugging away. It's not an overnight success. I don't care. You know, it's funny because a lot of people drop Co's name for overnight success, but the quickest rise to me has always been Flatland because they had such a buzz about their first album, that Humble Folks album. There was a buzz about that before it ever came out. And they were really good at working their social media. That's another thing. You know, social media is a big world out there, and it's free to have a Twitter. It's free to have a Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, if you want to get into TikTok and all that. There's one Texas Red Dirt artist with a TikTok who went viral with one of his videos and got like over 1 million views. You know what I mean? It doesn't you know, I don't care who you are.
That, do you know?
Scotty Alexander. If
nice.
So if you got like 1 million views on one of your videos, and let's say only 1% of them looked him up and streamed his music, that's a lot of people streaming your music.
Right.
So, you know,
really good number.
Yes, market yourself. It's all about marketing. You know what I mean? And once you get a station's attention with one single, keep sending them singles. You know, that's the worst part. You can't. People forget you fast. And I'm sure you know that too. You know what I mean? If you take a year off, it's like rebuilding. It's like starting over. You were climbing up a hill, and all of a sudden you slid down. And every day you're not back out there, you're sliding back down the hill, and you got to start over and climb it back again. So,
and you have 1,000 other artists doing the same thing.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Not only are you competing with yourself, but you're competing with
all the new artists that came out in that year. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, been wanting to do this for a while, and I'm glad we finally got to be able to do it. And I think that we were nice-ish compared to.
I try not to leave anybody's actual names out there, you know.
Right.